Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you guys another tutorial in C#. This time we're going to be making a task management application, another Windows Forms application. It's going to have a CRM database and some Excel functionality, so it's going to be fun. Without further ado, let's just have a look at what it is that I'm actually going to be making or showing you guys to make. So here you can see we've got our login page for our application. If I can get the password right, let's try that again. Right, so we're in the application. You can see we've got database on one side, a form on the other side to put in new tasks. We've got one for completed tasks, and then we've got another database to add customers. So let's go ahead and give you guys a quick example of what we're doing here. So if I can think up a customer that is, and we'll call this one the marketing company. Just generic off the top of my head. There you go, that's creativity in action for you. Now, Brian, I know this guy. Right. 45 Lion Street, is that a real place? I have no idea what this is. Comment if you know. I'm sure that's probably far too many digits, but hey, who's paying attention? Right, so let's speed this up now. Come on. Right, we hit save. And boom, as you can see, message box, data goes in our data table. And then if we come back here, pop in the ID, populates all the fields, fills them up automatically with all the information. So let's just put in a job here, or task, click save. Again, we get a little message box just telling us that that's been completed successfully. Right, let's do something a bit more fun. This is what we really want to get when we're at work. Right, guys? Yeah, that's more like it. You need to be filling out Excel sheets when you can be becoming a Jedi Master. So here's a little bit of an inside joke for all you Star Wars fans. Set a date there, 4th of May, May the 4th. Be with you. Okay, so we've got two options once something's in our database. We can either close it, complete the task, or we can delete the task if it's no longer necessary, if it was a mistake. So let's delete one, close the other. So you can see this one comes over to another database, and then we've got the totals here for the prices. And we hit the Excel button, boom, opens up in our Excel application, all the same data is over there. So if you need to kind of, don't know what I've done there. So if you need to kind of work, between the two, you've got to take all your tasks from one, put them into an Excel sheet. You can do that. So let's close that down, delete this, come back out. So log out of here. So let's shut this down and restart Visual Studio, and we'll get to work showing you guys how to actually put this together yourself. So let's start a new project, and this is going to be under Templates Visual C#, and it's a Windows Forms application that I'm making here. I'm going to rename this Ticket Manager, hit OK. Right, so we've got our form. First thing I'm going to do is right click on the project and add new Windows form. And I'm going to call this one main.cs. So the first one's going to be for our login, second one's going to be the actual application itself. So I'm going to rename form1.cs login.cs, hit yes there. Okay, so let's go back onto the design view for our login page. Right, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to jazz this up a little bit, make it sound a bit more aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to come down and select steel blue for our background colour, and then we don't need to do anything else here. And we do need to change this to a fixed window so that the user can't kind of resize it. And then we come down and we're going to change the start position to center screen, and we're going to change the size, make it a bit bigger as well. So I'm going to change that to 580 by 466, but don't worry, all the coordinates, everything same as before. I'm going to post a link down below so you guys can kind of follow along with the layout. You don't have to worry about the naming of the controls, that sort of stuff, and all the coordinates, all those bits and pieces will be posted there so you can follow along at your own pace, your own leisure. So this one here, it's going to be the main kind of login label. I'm going to change, everything's going to be in Verdana here, the font. I'm going to change this to 36 pixels, and then we're just going to spruce up the color here, change it to silver. That's in web, by the way, just so you're not looking around spending too much time. So I'm going to change text to login for that one. Don't need to do the size or anything like that. We'll go back to toolbox and we'll get ourselves two more labels. Okay, now we've done that. So one's going to be username, the next one's going to be password. Change the font size here again. It's 16 this time. Okay, Just changed the location as well. So what I'm going to do, a couple of things first before we go into it. I'm going to show you the layout for the login part of it, and then some of the layout for the main form, and I'm going to speed the rest of the video up because otherwise it's just going to take far too much time. So I want to get straight into as soon as possible into the actual business logic side of the application. Everything that powers all the sort of stuff that you can do. That's the fun side of it anyway. But obviously the layout, you guys be able to go along, follow it, the written version, the written walkthrough. So we're going to go back to Toolbox once we've done the labels, and what we need now is a combo box, a text box, and a picture box. And also a button, be good. So we go back, grab our picture box, and I'm going to set the image here to basically a picture that I pulled off the web. But remember, anything that you guys are doing in a professional capacity, you've got to license your images. Don't just be going yanking stuff off the internet without paying people their dues. But this is just for like training purposes, so that's cool. The other thing that I was going to mention is, oh, why isn't that coming up? That's odd. You can't see anything. I must have done something wrong. As you'll see as we go on throughout the video, I'm probably going to make a couple of mistakes, but bear with me. You guys won't get the best. It's all quality here. Right. Why isn't it showing? I know what I've done. I've put this in the wrong place, right? So let's come onto this and take the image out of here. No, this is fine. I'm going to take the picture out of here, so click on this again and just project resource files none, and come back up to background image this time, not image, and just same again, local resource import resource. This is a PNG image. Fairly certain you can use probably any type of image in your picture box, JPEG or GIF, GIF, whatever you call it. Change the location here to A36. The size, make it a bit smaller, 119 by 108. So yeah, the main reason why this application is not quite ready for commercial deployment is because although everything that you see in our customer database is data bound, so that's the only way that we'd be able to do it and still be able to pull the values, the data from SQL into our form when we want to autofill the fields. That's the only way that you'd be able to do it, is by having it data bound to a SQL table. For the rest of the databases, though, I haven't quite got around to binding them to a data source yet. So the kind of live tasks and the completed tasks is something I'm planning to come back to this project and doing maybe a couple more videos or another video showing you guys how to do that. But until then, it's not quite. It's mainly just more for you guys to learn a bit about C# development and kind of like the bare bones making an application from scratch. The other thing as well, it may be good if I show you the foundation here and kind of give you the framework to work in, and then you can mess around with it. You can change things. Important here, what I'm changing these to is TB password for text box password, and then TB username for the combo box, or CB, sorry, username for the combo box. So it's important to get the naming conventions right, but again, in the written walkthrough, that'll all be in there. But yeah, it's important when you're doing programming to get the naming conventions right, so that later on when you're calling all these things in the code, you're not getting confused, because sometimes you can have different things, different variables, different controls with similar names. So you want to make sure they're very well defined and distinguished, so that you're not confusing one thing with another. And then you're sitting there scratching your head for like half an hour thinking, why isn't this working? And it's like, I just called the wrong variable or something like that. But yeah, anyway, going back to what I was saying, I'll come back with another video showing you how to link it all together and make it into like a fully functioning application that's bound to SQL. But in the meantime, I'm just going to show you kind of like a quick and simple way to achieve what I showed you before, and then we'll come back to it later. But yeah, until that's done, it's not quite ready for any sort of use in a commercial environment. Mainly because if you close the application, if you saved anything in those tables, like any tasks, you close the application, you come back, they won't be there, they'll be wiped each time, which is not good. Bit of a design flaw there, I suppose you could say. But again, it's just for learning, it's just for kind of training, learning new things. So I'm going to go into the main form, center screen again, change the size. I'm going to change this to 1395 by 785. Nice and big, gives us plenty of room to work with. We don't really need to change anything else here. And we'll go back into the toolbox and grab ourselves a tab control so that we can navigate between the different parts of our form and different pages and different data tables. So I'm just going to change the background colour and the size here. Something a little bit more pleasing, still blue. Another thing is something that's really great about the .NET framework is it makes it so easy in C# to be able to design the layout of your GUI, which in other programming languages you might actually have to sit down and you would have to code all this sort of stuff by hand, which most people would term that real programming. This isn't real programming, we're just but it takes away that layer of complexity so that we can just focus on coding the application to do what it is that we want it to do, what we expect it to do. But yeah, it's good to have a knowledge of being able to do both, because you might not always have this kind of hand-holding of being able to just drag and drop the elements around. You might, if you're developing like C++, you're going to actually have to go in and code all this stuff yourself. When you're doing a user interface, or even when you're working in Linux, you might have to use a whole lot of different software suites. When you come out of something like Visual Studio, which I find it's great when you're learning, because it takes away a lot of the complexity for you. But yeah, once you're quite comfortable using C#, I recommend trying to go on and obviously just keep learning. So I'm going to stop going on here. So what I'm doing here, I'm basically adding a new tab to the tab control. Then change the name, first one to live tickets, second one closed tickets, and then the third one I'm going to change to customer database. And we're changing the background colour each time as well to good old sky blue. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to just show you kind of the layout for the login screen, and then a little bit for the main page, the sort of live tasks page, and then I'm just going to speed the video on up from there. So I'm going to give you guys a break from my running commentary. Rest your ears. So what we need here, we need a data grid to store everything in. I'm going to go down and change the name of this to DGV live tickets, but again, all this information you don't need to keep up with it. I'm going to speed the video up, get straight into the code side of things. So all the control names, all the coordinates, everything, you'll be able to find all that stuff in a written walkthrough and just follow it from there. Kind of go through it at your own pace and then come back to the video and we'll sort of get down to the brass tacks, the fun stuff, Okay, so just resize that there. Change the color to light steel blue this time. Now I want to go back in Toolbox and grab a couple of labels. Right, and from here on out I'm going to speed the video up. Once I've done this, so do this first part, because otherwise it just takes up way too much time, to the layout, which I'm sure you guys will be fine. Kind of trying to achieve pretty much, exactly what I've got before, what I've already showed you. Okay, so now that's done. Try this, and I don't like getting silver. Thought it'd be a bit adventurous there and try something different, but I don't think that doesn't contrast as well with the light blue and the steel blue. So go in here and get some labels, and I'm going to speed it up from here on out and come back and do the main code that powers the application. The fun part, get down to the real stuff. Alright, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so now that we've done that, we want to come back into the design of our login form. We're going to open up SQL Server here and connect to our server. So I'm using a local database here, which you can download from MSDN. We're going to set up a new database. So now I'm going to show you guys basically how to do the login so that you can put in a username, password, and actually access the applications. I'm going to call this database Ticket Manager. So then we just expand that, find the database we've just created, expand it again, and then right click on on table, and select new tables. So we're going to do the first one here. Column is going to be user ID, and we're going to the data type. We're going to set that to integer, and we're not going to allow nulls. We're going to set the primary key, user ID as a primary key, and then we're going to do another column username. It's going to be various characters, varchar 50 characters max. Same for password, the third column, and neither one of those are going to allow nulls. So now we're going to save that table as users. Alright, so now we've done that. Refresh and expand that, and then right click and select edit. And we're just going to put in the first user for our application with the user ID 1, username, my name. You can use your own name. For that, I'm just going to set a password to password, and then we're going to go back into Visual Studio, and we're going to click the little arrow in the corner of the box here, and we're going to bind it to a data source. So let's just set our connection string here. So we're going to connect to a local database, our server on my PC. Obviously, you might have a different server name from me in your version of SQL. Select the database name, test that's working. And what's happened here? I think I might have jumped a little bit ahead there, quicker than the computer. Makes a change. Okay, so not to worry, don't worry about that. I've just been a little bit too quick on the gun in pressing next. So there we go, just click there, and then we set the object that we want to use is the users table that we've just created. And we come back here in display member and value member, we're going to set those to username. Okay, so now it just populates, I'll show you guys, run this quickly. So now it just basically populates the combo box with all the users that we've got on our table. And that's another feature actually that'd be quite good, is to have maybe an admin page. Obviously you can see at the moment the submit button doesn't do anything. But yeah, an admin page where you can go into the application and actually set different users. This is something else I wanted to show you guys. And go to accept button and put button submit so that you can press the enter key. And also password char in the password text box, we're just going to put an asterisk in there so that the characters are hidden. Then we're going to double click on submit button. It takes us to the login.cs code. We're going to put in using system.data.sql client so that we can get access to basically establish a connection to SQL database that we created. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to basically create a new SQL connection. I'll show you how to do that. But yeah, that would be quite cool, is to have an admin page so that user of the application go in and set up a new user or new technician, something like that. So that's another thing that I might in the next video add. So what we're going to do is just open up Server Explorer here, copy the connection string in between the apostrophes there. So that just basically tells the application this is the server that we want to connect to whenever we run the following code. So we're going to basically pass a query to SQL, and it's going to ask it to select pointer. So select from the memory of that data table where from users where the username column username is equal to the value of combo box. Get that right? Combo box username. So it's basically going to try and compare the values, whatever it is that you've entered in that field, with the values that are in the column that we specified, and then find out whether or not they're a match. And if they are, then it sort of gives us the OK access granted, or open sesame, should I say? Batman reference somehow, must be. Same again, and password plus the value of the password text box. Okay, and then we're going to write a SQL data adapter, SDA. So this is basically going to tell it to parse the query that we've written and using the connection, so to the server. Now we're going to make a new data table for all this information, and we're going to fill the data table with the query that we're passing to SQL through the connection that we've established. Then we're going to count the rows in the data table. If they are equal to 1, then we want a message box to appear. So basically, if there's a match, we want a message box to appear that says welcome to Ticket Manager, and then we're going to do plus basically the username that has been entered, so giving a nice little warm friendly welcome message when someone starts the application. And then the next thing we're going to write is we're going to hide, once a user's logged in successfully, we're going to hide the login form that they're looking at, and we're basically going to establish a new instance of our main form, which we're going to declare as a variable object main. So that's going to equal new main form. So we're going to hide the login form and show object main, the main form. If it doesn't find a match, then we're going to do an else statement. We're going to basically show another message box which states the incorrect password or username has been entered. So pretty simple stuff to get your head around. Right, so let's start this and see how that is working. Oh, what we've done here, I forgot my parentheses. Okay, it's always the little details. Yeah, so let's try and get the password in right this time. Fatal exception, fatal error. Oh, what have I done? Invalid users. Right, so it can't find the data table that we're referencing in the query that we've passed. Why is that? I'm actually using the wrong database here, so just take this database from the first application I showed you guys, because I've created a new, so let's just check the name here, so it's Ticket Manager. So I do apologise, shouldn't happen to you if you've been following this correctly. So there we go, as you can see it does work, it lets us into the application, but at the moment, none of the buttons on here do anything. We can't, put in one, nothing's happening. Everything here is just dead links, basically. It doesn't do anything, so let's just make sure of that. Just to give you guys proof, 100% proof that nothing works. This isn't a scam. The genuine article. I'm going to be learning how to do this all from scratch. This 100% works. It's been tried and tested. Put my name on it, like a George Foreman grill. Okay, so that's basically the login page. That's all done. Nothing else that we really need to do here. So what I want to do next, go into main designer. Let's just think, first thing that we don't actually, because what we need to think about is logically, we need to have information in our customer database first before we can really do anything in the live tasks page. So I'm going to go here and double click on the save button. So that's going to generate some code in here for me, but because this is in our main.cs, everything, the main business logic is going to go in here. So I'm going to do a few things using system.data.SQL client for our SQL connection. And then we're also going to use system configuration, which you may need to, obviously you'll see later on, I'm going to have to reference another namespace, but you may have to add that reference. I'll show you how to do that later. And then we're going to use using Microsoft.Office.interrupt.xl so that we can use the Excel application. So I'm just going to add that reference in here. So go to CRM and just search once it's finished. Got a lot of libraries in here. Okay, so let's just find Microsoft up. Excel, there we go, the object library. So just tick that box there, click OK and add that. Might take a few moments. Okay, so that should have It should have been added. I don't know why that still has a squiggly line under it. Huh. So it is interrupt office. No, it's not. I wonder if I've added the correct library. Let's have a look again. To apologise for having a few technical difficulties. I'm sure we'll be back online shortly. So yeah, that's definitely to have the right package. Let's just make sure I'm actually bear with me. So I did say there would be probably a couple of mistakes. Not so much a mistake, it's just gives you guys a chance to learn how to do something else, how to do a bit of research whenever you run into a problem. I know how to do this. I did this before, but it was about a week ago I actually first built this, so I can't remember how did I add this the first time. Okay, let's have a look on MSDN documentation, see what it tells us about adding the reference. Okay, so that's for console application. Solution Explorer, right click, project AI, reference, done that on assemblies page, assemblies. Okay, so we were looking at components, or COM, but we did add the Microsoft.office.interrupt Excel reference, didn't we? No, we added objects library. Let's go back and see if we can find this in assemblies. So I'd hate to have to start this video all over from scratch. Oh, it's about another hour. Okay. I should have been better prepared before I hit record. It's not to worry, let's not panic. Let's not panic, let's resend, so it's not in there. I can't quite remember how I accessed this package, this library last time. My answer's not there. Let's have a look. Someone else had the same problem. Okay, Office 2000, that may be a bit old for what we were looking for. 2007, yeah, that's probably. So we've done that. We've done the object library. Yeah. Okay, that's wishful thinking. That's not going to definitely have. Let's just try and rebuild it again. Not rebuild, let's just try and add the reference again. Try something different. Let's try the object library for Office. Should add all of them. Okay, that might take a while. There's a few files there. Okay. Have they been added? No. Okay, this is odd. So, let's try it again. I'm sure that's how I did it last time. Sure. Is it adding in a reference? Is that my problem? Is it not adding the references when I'm asking it to? Huh. Let's try and Stack Overflow. It's a NuGet package. My bad. Now I remember. I'm so dumb. I'm so dumb. I'm sorry, guys. I just wasted like 5 minutes of your time just over something completely stupid, right? Where am I going? Package manager console. Now, what was the start package? Microsoft Office start. Okay. See, I do remember this, but I had the same thing last time. I wrote the code to basically transfer the data over to the Excel application. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, right, so I need a reference, I need a namespace. So I went and did the exact same thing as what I've just done now, the first time around when I built this application. Oh my god, I'm honestly so dumb. Okay, right, so it's working now. So there you go, that's a bit of the process, the troubleshooting process, but yeah, usually nothing too obvious like that. That happens to everybody. Let's move on. Okay, so we've basically open up another connection here, but this time we're going to be using a few. Let's say again, just copy the string. We're going to basically be doing this a couple of times. We're going to have different parts of the form we're going to be accessing the same connection. So we're just going to put it at the top of the page here before the main sort of starting point of the application. Then we're going to come down to the code that was generated when we clicked on the save button and basically open a connection and then write a new command. It's not going to be a new command, sorry. I'm going to create a command through the connection that we've opened. And that's going to command type, sorry. It's going to be a text command. And the query that we're going to write here is going to be to insert the input from the field in our customer database form into the data table in SQL, which we're going to make in a second. So the columns that we're going to need in that table are going to be ID, client, contact address, postcode, phone, email, and website. So basically all we're telling it here is to basically the command is going to be take the values from those text boxes from the fields that we have in the application and pass them to SQL, to our database. And then we're going to write another function or method that basically repopulates the database from within the application each time we hit the button, so that each time a record is added, we then refresh the data grid and it repopulates it with the the new record added in each time. Okay, so let's not forget the semicolon there. So the parameters, there is another way to do this through connotation, where you basically add, you'll see it, I'm going to do it later, but not through a SQL connection, when I'm passing the fields, the values from the fields in the live tasks form. But it's always good practice to use parameters instead, to declare parameters to tell it where we're going to be pulling data from. So in this case, we're going to be telling it to add to this column at ID or at client the value which is in this text box. So the other way to do it is to basically you would have add to the data table text box customer, comma, text box client, text box postcode, and so on, or plus text box postcode, which leaves you open to data attacks, SQL injection attacks, where you can basically you can basically pass a query while you're using the application and gain administrative rights, or even worse, wipe all the records from the database, which is a bit of a security issue. So this is recommended better practice. So I've kind of forgotten what just want to go back and check. Yeah, I had a feeling that I didn't change the names here. So let's just go back and give them some well-defined names to call it on our code. So but yeah, passing the values from these fields to our data table is best done by declaring parameters in which we want to basically achieve that, if that makes sense. Basically make sure your data is secure. You know, you read enough in the news about massive, you know, huge companies have some sort of breach where someone just happened to type in the right administrator username and password, and or it was an inside job, or you know, whatever, and they managed to get hold of people's national insurance numbers, all that sort of jazz, passwords, you know, the lot, credit card numbers. So let's just go back here and change these to the correct values. To make sure that's right. Yep. So yeah, can't stress again, make sure that you stay on top of your control names. Make sure there's no mix up, so just want to check that this here doesn't conflict with the other similar text boxes that we have in our first form. So this is make sure these are very well defined. So we're going to call the ones in the customer database side of the application textbox client name, textbox client address, textbox client postcode, that sort of thing, and then declare them here. Okay, almost done. Oh, I spot an error waiting to happen. I've just changed that to lowercase there. And then I'm just going to copy this one from the last line and put it in between client and address. Make sure that everything goes into the table in the right order. So the last thing we want is for, you know, the email or the ID to end up in the wrong column in our data table. Okay, so this one here we've just called text box contact. So let's just put that in there, slightly different from the others. One of these is unlike the others. The odd one out. Oh, just going to grab some more here. Right. Okay, so then we're going to close the connection once we've run that query and passed the values from those text boxes into our data table. And don't worry about the display data statement there. I'll explain that in a moment. So basically, once we've done that, we've closed the connection, we then want to have the pop-up box, message box, record updated, just to let our user know that that's gone through successfully. And then we're going to wipe the values that the user has entered into those text boxes in the form. So it's quite easy to achieve. Basically just declare the text box text value equals null, blank. Just change these here. See, again, don't worry about the line that is this clearly red line under it, display data. I'll explain that in a moment. That'll be the next function that we'll be writing. Okay, so they all add up, that's all right. Because that's always the annoying thing, you'll end up going through it and then you'll be one thing you just forget and overlook. Right, so let's write a new function here called display data or disp data. So we're going to open the connection again, the same one that we're going to use throughout, to our local database server, which holds our users table. We're going to add a few other things in there as well. Right, we're going to add the customer database and also a table for our technicians. Okay, so why? It shouldn't be, now that I've declared it, it shouldn't be throwing me an error. This should maybe I need to bind this table. Did I bind it last time? So this is the problem with recording. You end up running into a problem like this. You can't stop it. You can edit it later on, but I'm just going to do this unedited for you guys. Apart from speeding up earlier. But anyway, we need to make this table, so we might as well make it now. So we're basically going to do ID primary key, all the same values that we had before in our first SQL query that we wrote on the save button for our client database. So that's client, contact address, postcode, phone, email, website, and they're all going to be varchar 50. We might just increase the character limit on a few of those. Things like address might be a little bit longer in some cases, so just set it to 150 just to be on the safe side. Obviously ID is an integer. Email, set it to 70, seems about reasonable. Website as well, set it to 70, and everything else should be fine. So save that, and this table, we're calling this table customer DB, customer database. But okay. Let's go back in here and bind that to something, perhaps, because this will basically generate a main load function, which tells our form what to load into the application on the app start when we enter this page, once we've gone through the main login page. So I'm pretty sure I need to call display data in there before I can actually write a function without getting an error. At least that's what I think I did last time. So I know we have to call it in here anyway, but I can't remember now if... No, that still isn't working. Okay, so we've run into another bit of a roadblock. More than what I had hoped for, anticipated for. So again, only the best on this channel. Only the best, top quality. So that's not going to work. Let's just remove that there. Uncut, that was the word I was looking for. I want to do is uncut for you guys. So don't you can follow along with the basically I'll post the source code as well, and you can follow along with the written walkthrough. So hopefully I'm not confusing you too much. No, that's not why. So sometimes the IntelliSense can be a bit of a pain when it's trying to kind of predict what you want to do. Because basically this function that we're writing here, this is where we're telling the data grid to refresh each time that we update it with a new record, so that it's visible, so that that new record appears in the table within the application. But as far as I remember, it shouldn't be telling me that there's an error. So I'm not sure. I'm just wondering if there's something that I haven't typed correctly, or doesn't seem to be. So we can copy, because it is somewhere here. The only thing we're really changing is the query that we write to SQL. So we're basically telling it to select the values from customer database and update them in our. So basically creating a new data table and then filling the, or calling the, assigning the data source of that table. Sorry, let me explain that another way. So we're basically filling a data table as a data source that we're then going to link to the data grid view. And the reason why I'm calling this system.data data table instead of just data table, which you could do, is because later on there'll be a bit of confusion when we go to write the Excel function. So we'll just get that out of the way before it causes us any problems, any further complications. So we're basically creating a new data table, DT, and then a new data adapter to basically pass or fill that data table with the values from customer database. And then we're assigning that data source, DT, to our data grid customer database. But for some reason, I don't know why it's telling me that isn't correct. No, that's not. I'm not missing a curly brace. Maybe if I can probably get rid of this altogether now that it's not bound to SQL. Huh. I'm just wondering if I missed, like, couldn't have missed anything up here, because that's all running correctly as far as I'm aware. Let's try and call display data or disp data up here before we get into the main starting point of the application. No, that hasn't made a difference. Okay, drastic measure guys. I'm going to just have to check the code in the original version just to make sure I haven't made a typo here, because I am pretty stumped. I'm not sure why that isn't working. It shouldn't have any issues at this stage, as long as I've not overlooked anything. So let's just head into main CS here and just check that everything that is such a stupid mistake to make. So I don't know if you can see what I've done there. Become apparent. Just make sure that is, because that's too obvious. No, that is too dumb. How is that possible? So yeah, I put in a semicolon here, which I shouldn't have done. So as you can see now, there's no error. So yeah, about 10 minutes over something completely idiotic. Do apologise, guys. No, but yeah, sometimes it can be, you can be sitting there scratching your head thinking, what? And all you're missing is like either like a semicolon or a curly brace, or just something silly. Or in that case, I've got a semicolon where the one shouldn't be. But okay, let's pretend it never happened. Let's move on. Okay, so that is what you need. So if we now test this, if we go and add a customer into, we start the application, we go and add a customer into our database, and it should work with no issues. Fingers crossed, knock wood. To jinx myself, I'm sure. Okay, let's make up Bob's Autos. That sounds like a nice place to get ripped off when you're MLT. The garage, nice and imaginative, if I can spell it right. Okay. And it's not apostrophe email. We need realism here, folks. It's all about realism. So save, and there we go, record update. Perfect. So yeah, that works like a charm. So technically, I didn't make a mistake there. Everything was correct. So you can see that's been updated in SQL as well, and in our database within the application. So I'm just going to close that. Go back to the one we're in the middle of actually making. So hopefully we shouldn't have to refer back to that too many times. I should know what I'm doing here. Should is the operative word here. But anyway, moving on, onwards and upwards. Okay, so let's move to the next part. What we want to do now is we now want to basically modify our search button here so that when we click on it, providing that we have a valid ID in the ID box, it's then going to automatically fill the text boxes in our form. So we're going to basically declare another query. Our string variable here, SQL, which is going to be a query again that we're going to pass through the connection that we've already established to take data from the customer database again, where the ID is equal to the value of the client ID text box in our form. Okay, and then we're going to write a command here just to check that the ID that we put in, that we input, is actually a valid ID, that it does match one of the values in a column in our data table in SQL. So we're going to open a connection to do that so that the application can communicate with the server and the database. Okay, we're going to fill our data set again. Next time we're going to examine the arrays, or an array, basically the cells in the customer database to find out if, so basically the program's going to search through that column and basically figure out whether or not there's a matching ID within the table. And the reason why we put 0 in our array is because in programming, contrary to what you've been taught your entire life, counting starts at 0. Funny enough, it's simply more efficient. and then we're going to tell it that if we do find a matching value in the column, the ID column, to then fill the text boxes in the form. So a TB client, TB address, TB postcode, and TB phone with the information that's already in the data table. So basically an autofill feature. If that wasn't already quite clear what we were doing. We're basically telling it to be passed as a string data type. And if it doesn't find a matching ID or a valid ID, we want to throw up a message box which displays invalid ID. And this one will be a bit fancy with this one, and we'll turn it into an error message box. It's quite simple to do that. Just message box button, OK, and then message box icon error, and that'll give us a nice little bing whenever the error box pops up. Well, not so nice for the user, but it's fun for us. And it's giving me an idea that it's probably a good idea to maybe change this here in the login. The message box that we wrote before, if you remember, if you've been keeping track, if you've been following this up until now, well done, might add. But it's probably a good idea, it's more appropriate to turn this into an error box as well if the user enters the incorrect password or username. Okay, so that should be, I think that is everything that we need. Let's start this. Just double check. So let's just go ahead and start this. It's like, why waste time in analyzing things? We can just go ahead and figure out if they're broken. Okay, so let's pop in our ID and okay, save that. Okay, we've done it. So it does populate the field automatically, which is what we want. We've got that autofill feature now, so that'll save us a bit of time when we're writing in a new task or a new job in our application. So now we're going to double click on save. So now we basically want to take this is a lot simpler. We don't really, all we need to do is just pass the values in text boxes to our data grid. So the way to do that is just to basically declare all the rows, or add new row, using values textbox ID.text, textbox client.text, and so on and so forth. So this was what I was talking about before when I was trying to explain briefly about SQL injection. This is what I was referring to, is if you tried to pass the values from the form in customer database to a data table in SQL in this sort of way, then you'd be leaving yourself open to attacks. It's not the most secure method. That's why it's better to pass those through defined parameters. But because this isn't going to be a data-bound data table, or data grid, excuse me, in this part of the application, we're going to kind of, mainly just to save on time, we're going to do it this way. But obviously later on I will come back once I've had a bit more time to work on this project and show you another way of achieving this, but at the same time being able to store those values in SQL so that you don't lose them in the event that you have to close down the application or whatever, which at the moment we can't do. Again, I repeat, can't do. as I said in the beginning, with this application. So the only one here that's any different is when we're then passing the date that we've picked in the calendar. We're going to do month calendar dot selection date dot start to short date string. Because the other ones, it's fine, we can pass that as a, just the text value that's already in the field. It'll go into the data table fine, no issues. But this one here, we need to convert it to the date to the kind of the short, condensed, written version. If that makes any sense, because the way that it's stored currently isn't appropriate for the data grid view. So we need to convert that. And then we're just going to copy this up here and change the names so that we can clear the input or that we have in our form every time we hit save. Just save the user a bit of time having to go through it and do that manually. So what's the point in programming if you can't make things nice and simple and automated and easy for the end user? That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Okay, and this one is going to be combo box tech. Let's not forget that that's a combo box and not a text box. And we don't need to really worry about the calendar for that. Oh, did almost forget that we do have another text box for our estimates, where we input our prices. Okay, so that's not to worry. Pretty sure that should all come together now. There's nothing else there. So at the moment we should be able to put data into, let's just make sure that I haven't missed anything out. Oh yeah, what I'm going to do now, I'm basically going to create a table for our technicians so that we can give them an ID and the technician put their name in the data table so that we can then populate the combo, the drop down box. Something else, another column that you could add, if you wanted to go a bit more in depth, is maybe like position in the company, and then like I was saying before, the admin screen that you could also add to the application so that you can add new users in. You can put their position, what it is that they do in the company, but for this, purposes of demonstration, we're just going to put in a name for the technician. I'm going to save that table as text. And we just go here, click use data bound items. I'm just going to add a new using the same connection string, and we're going to select the text object table, and we're going to populate this with the tech name, so that now when we start the application, we should be able to enter a new customer into the database, and we should also be able to autofill based on the ID that we enter in here. And there should be technician name appear in the combo box. Why hasn't that appeared? I've forgotten to save the table. Okay, so I'll just save that table and restart the application. It should be working now. So yeah, we should be able to enter a new customer, enter a job into our task data grid, and then it should autofill based on the ID when we click search. There we go, does that like a charm. So let's go ahead and put our first job in here for myself, for moi. $120, fix a copier. Okay, so there's another thing that I've overlooked and forgotten about. We've got to go back to design here and just click here in the little arrow up in the right hand corner and add some columns for the information to go into. So do ID, client, address, and we're going to make some of these visible and some of them aren't going to be visible, so that's only going to be the price column. Postcode phone, I want to call it phone. Is that the next one in the list? So the next one in the list, is it tech or description? I'm pretty sure it's description. Let's just double check, because otherwise we'll get those back to front. Yeah, it's tech. That's what I thought it was. Go back here and add again. Call this one tech. Technician. It's tech for short, so we don't use up as much space on the data grid. And the next one, it's either price estimate or date. Pretty sure it's price first. So we're not going to make this one visible. I'm going to uncheck the checkbox there for visible for price, and in date due, this one we do want this one to be visible. So basically what that means is the value that we enter in the estimate text box, it won't appear in this date grid, but we forgot to go back and set it to true for visible. So we want client address, postcode, phone, tech, description, date due in this date grid, and then in the completed table, that's where we want the price to come up. So you can add the price in this first date grid. The only reason I'm not doing it is just because of space. But obviously you can make the screen a little bit wider and add it in, because it's quite good. You'll be able to edit before you close the ticket off if it closes for a different price than what you've estimated. But just I haven't done it in this version. Okay. So we've got the ID of the client. So there you go. We can't delete anything yet. So we've got customers, no closed tickets yet. So we can't close anything off, or we can't delete anything, but we can autofill our field or form. We can't log out either. So those are the other couple of things that we just need to add now. And then the exciting bit that you're all waiting for, how to make this work with Excel. Okay, so what we're going to do next, we're just going to go back to the design for the main form. We're going to double click on close tickets. Okay, so in here we're going to basically write for each row that we select in the first date grid DGV live tickets. For each row that we select and then hit the button, we're going to delete that row from that data grid and pass the values stored in that data table to the second data grid, closed tickets. So we remove the selected row from DGV live tickets, and then we add it to DGV closed tickets. It's pretty simple. And then what I'm going to write down here, basically we're going to output to TB total text box the value of this total summation of all the values of all the prices in the final cell, the estimate cell in the data grid. So it's basically going to compute the total earnings for the day, I suppose, and output it to that text box. So we're basically telling it here where cell 8, I believe it is, has a value and it's not empty, not null, to calculate that value to give us a summation and output it as a string or as a double. Pardon my French. The reason being a double gives us a decimal point rather than just an integer. We would lose some data if that was the case. Okay, so let's start that and see it in action. So do a quick example here. Oh, why have I done that? We need the price. Let's delete that. Okay. Now the delete button doesn't work. The way I've done that is I've just selected it and then hit delete on my keyboard. So that'll still allow you to delete something from the date grid view, but obviously the end user doesn't want that necessarily. So okay, so I've got to add the columns to the second date grid view and caused tasks. But yeah, the end user doesn't necessarily know that, so that's hence the reason for the delete button down the bottom, just to make it a little bit more user friendly for those who may not be advanced computer users. Okay, so let's add the columns here where we want to output the values passed from the first data grid. Okay, so this is why you need to switch up and distinguish the names that we've already used in the past. What is it that comes next? Is it description or tech? Pretty sure it's tech. And this time round we're going to make the price column visible, but we are going to include the date, so it's going to pass everything through from the first data grid, but we're going to hide the date column so it's not visible. Okay, so let's start that and see how that is running. Okay. Okay, so we're trying to pass another value that isn't compatible with being converted to a double. So that just leads me to believe that I've put in the wrong cell here. So let's go back and count the cells. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Huh. That would appear to be right. So I'm basically, I believe I'm trying to pass the date as a double, or convert the date to a double, which obviously isn't going to work, or maybe a string data type to a double. So let's just change the cell here and try this again. Index out of range. I know what I've done. I'm so stupid. I mentioned this earlier, that counting starts from 0. It appears that I've forgotten how to count. So yeah, counting starts from, so it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's something always good to bear in mind so you don't make silly little mistakes like I've just demonstrated there. So there you go. I take the hits and make the mistakes and you can learn from them. So yeah, as you can see, that works as expected. We've got the total here. And yeah, that's pretty much what we wanted that to do. So now the next thing is to now make our delete button in the live tasks form functional. So yeah, that's fine. So let's just go up to the main design, open this tab, and it's something I just wanted to show you guys. So it's useful to know, because I haven't done it here, but you'll want to, when you're testing this out, you'll want to do this at home when you're making this. It's basically, if you can find it, there we go, we've got something called the tab index. So this just means when you hit the tab key to cycle through the different fields on the form, you know, to access it more efficiently, you want to put them in order so that they don't just sort of jump around randomly. They go through everything kind of in a linear fashion or in an orderly fashion. So it starts over the top and then works its way down to the bottom rather than going from, you know, the one at the bottom to the one in the middle to jumping around like that. So that's just something useful to know how to do that. Okay, and then we're just going to come, no, don't do anything now. Just going to come over to delete, double click on that, and we're basically same as what we've done before. Why am I writing? No, I don't need to type this out. We just copy what we've already got in here basically. We don't need to change anything, we just need to take the first two lines. And there we go. So now we can delete by hitting the delete button. I put a curly brace in there. So that is the first page, the first tab complete. Everything is fully functional in there, apart from the logout button. I'll show you that at the end. So next we're going to double click on our Excel button. So this is going to basically take the data that's in our closed tasks data grid and pass it through to our Excel application. So this can work with, well, I've only tested it with WPS, but I imagine it will work with any Excel spreadsheet application that you have, you know, Microsoft or, you know, another open source application. So basically telling it that we want to use the Excel application. We want to open up a workbook in that application. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so we come back. This is not looking promising. Why is it down there? If I type this incorrectly? No, yeah, I must have. Why is it giving me an error down here? Okay. No. You cheeky bugger. Okay, so now it's fine. It just had a bit of a hissy fit moment there for a second. Okay. So we're basically telling it to open up a new workbook and to pass the data into a worksheet. And then we're going to specify how we want the layout of the worksheet to work or to appear. So app.visible, that just means that we want the application to open up, to start when we hit the button. Oh, I forgot something. Oh no, I already have that in there. I might. So yeah, no, that is right. That is correct. So just pull that down there, just to so I'm just nervous as to why it's telling me that there's a warning under worksheet, but I realise now it's because we've not told it. So we need to name the sheet 1 is where we want the data to be entered into, and there we go, that clears that warning. So basically the reason why we get that warning is because it's telling us that there's a variable that's been declared which is not in use. I'm going to tell this the active sheet, and the name is going to be of the worksheet is going to be exported from Ticket Manager by default. And now we're going to specify the rows and how we want them to appear in the application. So basically I said that we want all the cells from DGV closed tickets and all the columns within that data grid. We also want the header text to appear at the top of the worksheet. I'd forgotten a semicolon. No. What am I doing? And let's tell it to save the workbook as the following. As an Excel spreadsheet file type. Now, I'm just a little bit worried here that I might be forgetting something. So I'm hoping that this will work first time. I think that's everything. Let's just check that and make sure it's working. Okay, so let's add a new job here and close this one up. Let's test this out. Fingers crossed, and yeah, there we go, success. So we now have our Excel compatibility. Now the last thing to do is to program our logout button. So what I'm going to do for this, I need to add and the delete button on for our closed tasks data grid. So let's just go back into main here and go down and double click on the delete button, and then we can just go up and take this here. Now the reason I'm copying this one and not the other from the original delete is because I want each time that is clicked for the calculation to be done again, so that it then updates and refreshes the new value, the new figure for the totals in TV text box. So we'll change this here to be selected rows in DGV closed tickets instead, and that should be that. And then the last thing we could do, just take the logout button from here, just copy that, and that's Control C. If you didn't know, you should. And then Control V, just pop it up there. And again in the last tab, Control V again, and just double click on that. So then all we want to do now is when this button is clicked, we hide the current view, the current form, and we now yeah, we want to declare a new instance of our login page and then show that page on button click. Then we just go back out to design and we just go through and double click on this one, go back and to the first tab and double click again on that login button, the third one, and then we just copy from up here and pop it down here as well. And here we go, that's probably the nicest and sort of simplest part of the whole program. And there we go, now we have it. So we should have a fully working task management application. And oh, one more thing before I let you guys go, just one is purely for like aesthetics, I just prefer it like this. But we go up to the main load, the page load, on application load, and we just put in the drop down box to equal null on application start. So there we go, that's pretty so at least we know the error message is working, if I can put in the password correctly here. So let's just have an overview. So we've got autofill, select tech, which is data bound. Let's just make up a little job, a little task here for our technician to do, and set an estimate price. We'll save that to our data grid. So let's close this one off. We'll have a look at it here. So we can see total 280. Going to add a new customer in there. We've got a customer database. We can open it up in Excel and we can delete, and then we can just hit log out, and there we go. That's now you have it. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope you have fun adding to this project if you can, if you want to play around with it. And so I'll see you guys in the next video.